In the shadows of Madrid, 1808, a city trembling under whispers of war and plague, lived a man whose genius teetered on the edge of madness. His name was whispered in hushed tones among the elite, and feared by those who glimpsed the eerie creations spilling from his dimly lit workshop. He was Alejandro Varela, a man consumed not by ambition alone but by an obsession so dark it clawed at the very fabric of human morality. Alejandro's life, like the cobwebbed corridors of his home, was a labyrinth of secrets and sorrow. The city outside buzzed with the usual clamor of merchants, soldiers, and beggars, yet within the thick walls of his residence, time seemed to slow, bending to the rhythm of gears, cogs, and metallic hearts. His wife, Isabella, had been the light of his life, her laughter echoing in chambers that now reeked of oil, metal, and a sense of foreboding that no visitor could ignore. She had fallen ill one winter, a fever that ravaged her delicate frame with the cruelty of an unrelenting predator. Alejandro, a man both revered and reviled, could not bear the thought of losing her, and in his grief, he conceived a plan that blurred the lines between life and invention, between love and the grotesque. Within days, he began constructing what he would call the mechanical soul, an endeavor so macabre that even his apprentices whispered prayers when they thought he was not listening. The device was designed to capture the essence of Isabella's being, to mimic her laugh, her tears, the subtle cadence of her voice, and the flicker of her eyes that once held him spellbound. Alejandro believed that science could wrest from death what gods had claimed, that metal and clockwork could bind a spirit to the earthly plane. But each night, as the gears whirred and pistons moved, he felt a growing unease, as if some unseen force was watching, waiting, condemning him for trespassing into realms forbidden. He would spend hours alone, the dim glow of lanterns casting shadows that seemed to dance with sinister intent across the stone walls. In those moments, Alejandro was both creator and prisoner, trapped in a symphony of machinery and mourning, where the line between genius and madness dissolved. The townsfolk spoke of strange noises emanating from his workshop at all hours, a haunting melody that mingled with the wind and unsettled those who wandered too close. Children hid behind doorways, clutching their mothers' skirts, pointing to windows aglow with a flickering, unnatural light. Rumors spread, each more grotesque than the last, that Alejandro had harnessed forbidden arts, that he had trapped the soul of his beloved within the heart of cold iron, that shadows moved where no shadows should be, yet no one dared enter. The gates were locked, the windows barred, and the few servants who remained whispered only in trembling tones. As winter deepened, Alejandro's obsession intensified. He worked without pause, his hands blackened by soot, his eyes bloodshot and hollow, speaking softly to the mechanical form as if it could respond. The mechanical soul grew more lifelike each day, its movements eerily resembling those of Isabella, its voice a distorted echo of her laughter. Nights were the worst. Alejandro would sit beside the device, hand resting on its cold metallic chest, murmuring words of love and apology, promising that he could reverse the cruelty of fate. Yet deep within, he knew that what he had created was a reflection, a cruel mimicry, a shadow of what once was, and in that knowledge, a deeper horror brewed, a prelude to tragedies yet unseen, whispers of blood and betrayal that would seep from the heart of Madrid, touching lives in ways no one could imagine. Shadows lengthened, the city's cries grew distant, and Alejandro remained, a solitary figure entwined with the fate of his invention, walking a narrow line between devotion and desecration, haunted by the impossible dream of reclaiming what death had claimed. In the cold candlelit nights, the gears of the mechanical soul clicked with a precision that was almost human, a mockery of life itself. Alejandro's obsession became legend, whispered in fearful reverence, a tale of brilliance marred by darkness, a warning that some desires, however noble they seem, can twist into cursed, tragic fates. And so the stage was set. The city unaware that the calm before the storm masked horrors that would ripple through every corridor, every shadow, and every trembling heart in Madrid. This is the story of love distorted, genius corrupted, and a soul, both human and mechanical, trapped in a dance of tragedy that history would almost forget, if not for those who survived to whisper the truth in the dead of night. As the cold months of Madrid stretched on, Alejandro's life became a solitary echo of its former self, each day blending into the next with the relentless hum of machinery and the faint, eerie laughter of the mechanical soul. Neighbors noticed that no light came from his windows, only a flicker at odd hours like the heartbeat of some living specter. The servants who remained whispered tales of strange rituals, of Alejandro speaking to the device as if it could respond, of shadows that moved on their own, stretching and curling against the walls in unnatural ways. Nights were filled with whispers of the wind and the soft grinding of gears, creating a symphony that unsettled even the most stoic of Madrid's citizens. Alejandro wandered the corridors of his home, muttering to himself, tracing the lines of the invention with hands that shook from exhaustion and obsession. Every detail mattered. The tilt of a head, the rhythm of a pulse, the exact curvature of a smile. He had become a prisoner to his own creation, haunted not by external forces but by the ghost of his lost wife and the impossible dream of restoring her to life through cold, mechanical imitation. In the dead of night, he would sit by the workshop's dim lantern light, listening for the faintest echo of Isabella's presence, willing the device to breathe, to move, to speak with the voice he remembered. Yet the mechanical soul, for all its uncanny resemblance, remained a cruel parody of life, a reminder that some boundaries are not meant to be crossed. Rumors like wildfires spread through Madrid streets. Merchants whispered in markets. Children told each other trembling tales, and soldiers passing the alleyways shivered as if feeling the unseen weight of Alejandro's obsession. They spoke of the man who trapped life in metal, of his eerie devotion that bordered on blasphemy, and of the mechanical heart that ticked with a rhythm both familiar and alien. Scholars visiting the city later would speculate that Alejandro had tampered with forces beyond science, blending early principles of mechanics with arcane knowledge that was rumored to be forbidden, yet none dared to ask for proof. Within the confines of his dimly lit home, Alejandro's obsession took darker turns. He began experimenting not just with mimicry, but with what he believed were the threads of the soul, attempting to transfer memory, emotion, and consciousness into cogs and pistons. Nights grew longer, and the boundary between the man and the machine blurred, until Alejandro no longer knew whether he was speaking to a creation or to a memory that refused to die. The city outside, oblivious to the full extent of his obsession, continued its march through war, hunger, and plague, unaware that in a single secluded home, history's most tragic experiment was unfolding. Visitors who ventured near the house claimed to hear a voice calling their name, soft and seductive, yet tinged with something inhuman, something that made their blood run cold. Children dared not play in the vicinity, and even the street dogs avoided the area, yelping at shadows that seemed to flicker and twist unnaturally. Alejandro, consumed by grief and obsession, began losing track of time. Days and nights merged into an endless cycle of construction, observation, and silent pleading. He would touch the mechanical soul's face, adjust a piston here, a gear there, murmuring words of love, apology, and desperate hope that somehow, some way, life could be reclaimed. Yet the device, for all its mechanical perfection, could never replicate the warmth of a beating heart or the subtle chaos of a human mind. And in that stark realization, Alejandro felt a creeping dread, a shadow stretching across his soul, whispering of the tragedies yet to come. Outside, the people of Madrid whispered of curses and hauntings, of the brilliance that had turned macabre, and of a love so twisted by grief that it became both invention and abomination. Alejandro, unaware of their murmurs, continued his work, each night descending deeper into a world of cogs, metal, and ghostly echoes, the line between devotion and desecration all but erased. The stage was set for a story of genius, obsession, and tragedy that would leave a mark on the city, whispered for generations. A haunting testament to what happens when love and grief collide with ambition unchecked by morality. In the quiet moments when Alejandro paused to look at his creation, he would see not just a reflection of his wife, but a mirror of his own descent. The tragic inevitability of his obsession written in the cold metal and whirring gears that refused to rest. And so Madrid slept unaware, the nights alive with the faint pulse of a mechanical heart, waiting for history to bear witness to a darkness that was both intimate and monstrous, a testament to the human desire to defy fate, no matter the cost. Madrid 1808 was a city on the brink of chaos, its cobblestone streets echoing with the footsteps of soldiers, merchants, and beggars alike. The air was thick with the scent of smoke from distant fires. A city simmering under the shadow of Napoleonic occupation, and Alejandro Varela's residence stood in one of its narrow, twisting alleys, an ominous structure that seemed to swallow light. The house had once been a place of laughter and warmth, filled with Isabella's songs that floated through the halls like delicate birds. Now it was a fortress of shadows, gears, and cold iron, where Alejandro's genius had warped into obsession. Alejandro was a man of paradoxes, brilliant yet haunted, loving yet obsessive, devoted yet teetering on the edge of moral collapse. Born to a family of modest artisans, he had shown an aptitude for mechanics from a young age, crafting intricate devices that amazed and unsettled those around him. By his 20s, his talent had drawn the attention of Madrid's intellectual circles, earning him respect and envy in equal measure. Yet personal tragedy struck when he met Isabella. Their love was immediate, fierce, and all-consuming, a bright flame in Alejandro's otherwise methodical life. Her sudden illness shattered him, leaving a void that no human could fill. Alejandro's grief transformed into a single relentless purpose: to preserve Isabella's essence, to defy mortality with invention. He secluded himself in his workshop, a labyrinth of gears, pistons, and metallic constructs, dedicating every waking hour to the impossible task. Servants whispered of nights spent in dim candlelight, of Alejandro speaking to the empty air as if Isabella's spirit hovered nearby, responding to every word. Scholars who later studied his work speculated that Alejandro had begun to explore concepts far beyond contemporary science, attempting to bridge the gap between mechanics and the soul. His notes hinted at the study of movement, emotion, and memory, suggesting a mind desperate to translate the intangible into the tangible. The mechanical soul began as a curious experiment, a small clockwork figure that imitated basic motions, but Alejandro's obsession escalated it into something far more elaborate. Each gear, each spring, each tiny piston was designed to replicate life, to mimic not just movement but emotion. He analyzed Isabella's laugh, the cadence of her speech, the subtle expressions that had once captivated him, embedding them into metal and machinery with painstaking precision. The city, meanwhile, carried on, oblivious to the macabre work unfolding in the quiet alley. Rumors reached local authorities, tales of unnatural lights and noises, whispers of a man attempting to resurrect the dead through mechanical means. Few dared approach, and fewer still dared to question the genius who had once contributed marvels to the intellectual elite. Alejandro's days were consumed by meticulous construction, cataloging every reaction, every mechanical twitch as if he could coax Isabella's soul to return. Nights blurred with days. Meals were forgotten, sleep was forsaken, and his human connections faded until only the mechanical soul remained as companion, reflection, and obsession. Visitors who braved the house spoke of a presence, an almost sentient awareness emanating from the device, a chilling echo of a woman they never met, but felt intimately through the haunting mimicry of life. Alejandro's reputation evolved from genius to legend, whispered in reverence and fear. His peers debated his sanity. Some saw the pursuit of love transcending mortality as noble, others as a descent into dark, forbidden arts. Within the workshop, Alejandro recorded every minute detail, from the angle of a metallic eyelid to the rhythm of artificial breathing mechanisms. He believed that by perfecting each element, he could approach the impossible. A soul preserved in machinery, a life extended beyond the natural world. Friends and neighbors spoke cautiously, recounting the once brilliant inventor now transformed into a shadow of himself, consumed entirely by grief and obsession. The city's streets seemed to hold their breath as the whispers grew. Tales of a cursed creation, a haunting presence that defied explanation, a tragedy in motion hidden behind closed doors. Alejandro's work blurred the line between innovation and heresy. While mechanics and early automata were celebrated, the infusion of obsession, love, and a desire to defy death rendered his creation macabre, unsettling, and condemned by those who glimpsed its truth. As months passed, the mechanical soul gained sophistication. Alejandro adjusted its gears to simulate breathing, fine-tuned springs to imitate a heartbeat, and calibrated pistons to emulate the subtle gestures of his beloved. The workshop became a cathedral of machinery, a place where love and madness intertwined, each motion of the device echoing the absence it sought to fill. In the city, whispers turned into tales of horror. Street children claimed the device moved on its own at night, that Isabella's laughter floated through the alleyways, chilling the blood of those who dared listen. Merchants avoided Alejandro's street, soldiers gave a wide berth, and the air seemed heavier near his home, as though shadow and sorrow had taken root. Alejandro, however, remained oblivious to outside perception, his focus absolute. The man who had once crafted marvels now toiled in a relentless pursuit, convinced that mechanics could seize the soul from death, that the impossible could be achieved through ingenuity, obsession, and the refusal to accept loss. And so, the stage of Alejandro's life was set. A solitary genius trapped within walls of gears and grief, a city unaware of the dark marvel unfolding in their midst, and a tragedy poised to reach a climax that would haunt Madrid for generations to come. The remaining days of Alejandro's work were consumed by an intensity bordering on obsession. Every piece of the mechanical soul was scrutinized, polished, and tested, as though each piston and gear could hold not only movement, but memory. Alejandro meticulously recorded the minutiae of Isabella's personality, her gestures, the rise and fall of her voice, the fleeting expressions that revealed her deepest emotions. His notes were extensive, dense with mechanical schematics interwoven with reflections on love, grief, and mortality. Servants reported hearing him speak directly to the device, asking questions and waiting for responses that never came, whispering apologies for the cruelty of fate, begging forgiveness for attempting to usurp nature itself. The city's political unrest mirrored Alejandro's private turmoil. Madrid citizens were distracted by soldiers patrolling streets, rumors of battle, and the oppressive weight of occupation. Yet within Alejandro's house, a different war raged. A war between life and death, memory and machinery, devotion and obsession. Even as the world outside descended into uncertainty, Alejandro's experiments grew ever more elaborate. He experimented with early forms of electrical currents, attempting to stimulate movement within the mechanical soul, searching for a spark that could simulate life. Nights became endless cycles of observation, adjustment, and fervent hope, punctuated by moments of despair when the device faltered, reminding him of the impossibility of his goal. Friends who dared approach the house were met with silence or strange, fevered explanations of his work. They observed shadows shifting unnaturally, the faint sound of gears turning in rooms supposedly empty, and the soft echo of laughter that did not belong to any living person. Alejandro's once vibrant home had transformed into a mausoleum of ambition and loss, filled with the mechanical heartbeats of a love he could not reclaim. Scholars later examining his journals noted the obsessive attention to detail, the blending of mechanics with attempts to capture consciousness, and the unyielding drive to defy mortality. Some suggested that Alejandro had been influenced by alchemical texts, obscure mechanical treatises, or theories whispered among secret societies, though the truth remained obscured by time and the shadows of his obsession. Meanwhile, the mechanical soul evolved, gaining subtlety in movement, simulating breathing, blinking, and gestures with uncanny accuracy. Alejandro's fixation intensified, each refinement bringing him closer to the perfection he imagined, yet further into isolation and madness. The city outside remained largely unaware, though rumors began to circulate among merchants, soldiers, and children. Some claimed to see lights flickering at odd hours, strange figures moving behind curtained windows, and faint mechanical sounds drifting into the streets, unsettling even the bravest. Neighbors avoided the alley where Alejandro lived, and street whispers painted him as a man teetering on the edge of sanity, a genius condemned by grief and a love that had twisted into something unnatural. Alejandro's personal health declined alongside his obsession. Days blurred into nights, meals were skipped, and sleep became a scarce commodity. Yet he pressed on, driven by an unshakable conviction that the mechanical soul could become a vessel of life itself. Every piston, spring, and gear was perfected, each subtle movement a tribute to Isabella's memory. Alejandro's letters, preserved in later years, revealed a man caught between brilliance and madness, a visionary striving to defy the boundaries of human experience, and a husband unwilling to accept loss. The mechanical soul was no longer merely a device. It had become Alejandro's companion, reflection, and obsession, blurring the lines between creation and conscience. Shadows in the workshop seemed alive, echoing the mechanical heartbeats that reverberated through the building. Servants reported a sense of unease, a feeling that some unseen presence was always watching, guiding Alejandro's hand, or perhaps passing judgment on his audacious pursuit. The legend of Alejandro and his mechanical soul began to spread beyond Madrid. Travelers, scholars, and even curious soldiers whispered of the tragic inventor who sought to defy death through machinery, a tale so macabre it straddled the line between horror and awe. In the quiet moments, Alejandro would pause, hand resting on the cold metal chest of the device, contemplating the impossible. He knew that what he had created was a shadow, a reflection, not life itself. Yet he continued, compelled by grief, obsession, and the desperate hope that science could reclaim the soul he had lost. As the seasons changed, so did the mechanical soul, its movements refined, its gestures eerily lifelike. Alejandro's devotion reached a fevered pitch, merging with madness, creating a chilling harmony between human memory and mechanical mimicry. The house, once a place of love and laughter, now stood as a testament to obsession, grief, and genius corrupted by sorrow. Outside, Madrid carried on with its own tragedies, unaware that within a single home, the line between life and machine, love and horror, was being tested in ways history would scarcely believe. Alejandro's story, preserved in whispers, journals, and later accounts, became a haunting lesson. That devotion unchecked by reason can twist into the macabre, that love can become a prison of obsession, and that the pursuit of conquering mortality may yield creations both brilliant and cursed. The city of Madrid whispered of Alejandro Varela's obsession, though few truly understood the depths of his descent. Shadows in his alley lengthened unnaturally, as if drawn by the magnetic pull of grief and machinery. Those daring enough to peek through the shutters reported seeing strange silhouettes moving behind flickering lantern light, figures that seemed almost human, yet unnervingly artificial. Alejandro spent hours observing the mechanical soul, adjusting its limbs, its eyes, and the subtle quiver of its lips. He meticulously recorded each reaction, seeking to perfect every imitation of Isabella's essence. As days merged into nights, the lines between invention and obsession blurred. Alejandro's interactions with the device grew more intimate, almost ritualistic. He whispered secrets, recounted memories of Isabella's laughter, and begged the creation to respond, to breathe life into the cold metal that could never truly harbor a soul. The neighbors, once indifferent, began to murmur about the haunting melodies of gears and soft, distorted laughter that escaped from Alejandro's home. Children told tales of a woman's voice calling them by name in the darkened alleys, only to vanish when approached. Merchants, soldiers, and curious onlookers felt an oppressive weight when passing by, as if the very air carried the grief and obsession emanating from the workshop. Within the house, Alejandro's world contracted into a universe of metal and memory. Every cog, every spring, every intricate mechanism was fine-tuned to simulate not just movement but personality, a chilling reflection of a life lost to fever and circumstance. The mechanical soul became more lifelike each day, its gestures eerily accurate, its eyes flickering with a semblance of recognition. Alejandro documented every quiver, every tilt of its head, analyzing minute variations and adjusting gears to emulate the human subtleties he remembered so vividly. Friends who dared approach were met with an unsettling silence, or Alejandro's fevered explanations of the work in progress. Some claimed to feel the weight of unseen eyes upon them, the presence of something neither fully alive nor entirely mechanical. Rumors of forbidden practices circulated. Scholars and local philosophers speculated on Alejandro's methods, suggesting that he had combined the study of mechanics with alchemical theories or early electrical experimentation. Some whispered that he sought to capture the human soul itself, embedding it within the device, a notion that drew fear and condemnation in equal measure. The mechanical soul's presence became more pronounced, its gestures increasingly resembling Isabella's laughter, her expressions, her fleeting smiles. Alejandro's obsession deepened, his humanity gradually replaced by the mechanical heartbeat of his creation. Nights were filled with whispered conversations, soft mechanical clicks, and the faint whirring of gears that seemed to echo through the walls. He spoke to the device as one would to a living companion, recounting the minutiae of daily life, memories, and confessions, each word steeped in grief and longing. Outside, Madrid's citizens became both wary and intrigued. Shadows cast by flickering candlelight created shapes that seemed alive, while the faint hum of machinery and distorted laughter carried into the streets. People avoided the alley, though curiosity compelled some to linger, hoping to witness the unnatural spectacle. Alejandro's health waned, yet he pressed on with tireless fervor. Days blurred, meals were forgotten, and sleep became a fleeting distraction, sacrificed for the pursuit of perfection. He meticulously catalogued every mechanical reaction, measuring and adjusting pistons, springs, and cogs to replicate Isabella's delicate expressions, subtle gestures, and the rhythm of her movements. Rumors escalated into whispers of curses and hauntings. Scholars debated whether Alejandro's genius bordered on madness, while townsfolk whispered of the man who sought to cheat death, creating a vessel that defied nature itself. Within the house, shadows seemed alive, dancing to the faint mechanical rhythms that resonated from the workshop. Servants whispered of chills, of eyes following them in empty rooms, and of sounds that mimicked life with eerie precision. Alejandro, lost in obsession, rarely acknowledged these warnings, consumed entirely by his desire to perfect the mechanical soul. Each adjustment brought fleeting triumph, followed by deeper despair, a cruel reminder that perfection was an illusion, and that the essence of life could not be fully captured in metal and gears. The city outside, embroiled in political unrest and social upheaval, remained largely unaware of the tragedy unfolding in the narrow alleyway. Yet the legend of Alejandro's work spread quietly, whispered among those daring enough to approach, and feared by those who sensed the darkness emanating from within. In the dead of night, Alejandro would sit beside the mechanical soul, his hand on its cold chest, murmuring words of love and apology, insisting that he could restore what fate had taken. Shadows lengthened, gears clicked with unnerving precision, and the boundary between creation and creator, life and machine, began to dissolve, setting the stage for the climax of a story steeped in tragedy, obsession, and the haunting echo of a love that could not be reclaimed. As winter deepened, Alejandro's obsession reached fever pitch. The mechanical soul moved with unnerving accuracy, blinking, breathing, and gesturing in ways that mirrored Isabella's memory with terrifying precision. Alejandro spent hours testing responses, observing subtle changes in movement, adjusting gears and springs to replicate human nuance. The house was filled with the constant hum of machinery, punctuated by faint, distorted laughter that seemed to echo Isabella's voice, seeping into the narrow streets outside. Neighbors reported strange occurrences, flickering candlelight behind closed windows, shadows twisting unnaturally, and whispers carried by the wind that chilled even the bravest passerby. Alejandro, isolated and consumed, no longer recognized the passage of time. Days and nights blurred into a continuous cycle of mechanical fine-tuning and emotional entanglement. He conversed with the device as though it were alive, recounting memories of Isabella's warmth, voice, and touch, pleading with the cold metal to respond, to return some fragment of life. Servants, few in number, spoke of unease, of a presence in the house that seemed sentient, almost judging Alejandro's relentless pursuit. They whispered of shadows moving independently, of gears clicking at impossible times, and of faint echoes of laughter that were almost human. Rumors outside the house grew, feeding the city's fascination and fear. Scholars debated Alejandro's sanity, while common folk murmured tales of a cursed creation, a man daring to trap life itself in metal. Some suggested that he had sought forbidden knowledge, combining early mechanics with esoteric theories, attempting to capture not just form, but essence. The mechanical soul's development was relentless. Alejandro's notes revealed an obsessive tracking of movement, expression, and response, cataloging even the smallest micro-gestures that defined Isabella's presence. Nights were the worst, filled with whispered monologues, mechanical clicks, and the oppressive silence of isolation. The device, despite its uncanny accuracy, could never fully replicate the warmth of a beating heart, the spontaneity of human laughter, or the subtle unpredictability of consciousness. Yet Alejandro pressed on, unwilling to accept the impossibility, consumed by grief and the desperate hope that invention could wrest life from death. Shadows cast by the flickering lanterns twisted across the walls, creating grotesque shapes that seemed alive. Servants reported the sensation of being watched, of voices murmuring when no one was present, of cold drafts and mechanical hums that defied explanation. Alejandro's obsession isolated him completely, disconnecting him from the outside world. The city, wrapped in political turmoil and social unrest, remained largely unaware of the true nature of the tragedy unfolding in Alejandro's home. Rumors persisted, growing more elaborate. Whispers that Alejandro had captured Isabella's soul, that the mechanical soul moved independently at night, that the workshop had become a haunted chamber of grief and obsession. Alejandro, however, was blind to the external speculation. His entire focus remained on perfecting every micro-gesture, every nuance of expression, striving for an unattainable ideal. Mechanical limbs were adjusted, cogs polished, springs refined, all to emulate a life that could never return. The obsessive process was both technical and emotional. Alejandro spoke to the device, confiding secrets, regrets, and unfulfilled desires. The city's air seemed heavier near the house, as if shadow and sorrow had taken physical form, warning off those who approached. Children claimed to see figures in windows calling their names, while merchants and soldiers shivered at the mere proximity. The mechanical heart clicked rhythmically, a mockery of life echoing through corridors now infused with grief and obsession. Alejandro's own humanity was slipping, replaced by the cold logic of mechanics and the emotional pull of memory. Nights were punctuated by soft mechanical whirs, whispers of old memories, and the chilling imitation of Isabella's voice, blending with the wind outside. Each mechanical adjustment brought fleeting satisfaction, followed by renewed despair, a reminder that life could not be fully captured in gears and pistons. The stage was set for tragedy. Alejandro's brilliance, grief, and obsession had converged into a creation that blurred the line between life and machine, love and horror. Shadows deepened, the faint hum of gears persisted, and the city unknowingly awaited the culmination of a tale of genius corrupted, grief twisted, and a love pursued beyond the natural bounds of existence. The moment Alejandro had long anticipated and feared arrived with the weight of inevitability. The mechanical soul, perfected in countless adjustments, now stood before him, its metallic eyes glinting with an uncanny familiarity. Alejandro reached out, hand trembling as if touching Isabella's essence itself, though he knew deep inside that no metal could ever hold a living soul. The workshop was silent except for the faint whirring of gears, punctuated by the soft, distorted echo of laughter that seemed eerily real. Alejandro spoke her name, his voice trembling with desperation and hope, but the machine only responded with mechanical precision, its gestures flawless, yet hollow. In that hollow mimicry, Alejandro glimpsed the stark reality of his obsession. He had not restored life but created a mirror of grief, a mockery of what once was. The mechanical soul's motions, perfectly timed and eerily lifelike, sent a shiver through Alejandro's spine. He observed how the gears moved with unnerving grace, each limb bending with human-like fluidity, each piston emulating a heartbeat that was only an illusion. Alejandro tried to infuse it with emotion, speaking words of love, recounting memories, hoping that some spark would animate the cold metal. Yet the laughter that emerged was both Isabella's and not hers, a chilling distortion of memory and metal, echoing in the shadowed workshop. The boundaries between creator and creation blurred as Alejandro fell to his knees, his mind consumed by a mixture of triumph, despair, and horror. He had achieved mechanical perfection, yet the soul, the essence of life, remained beyond reach. Shadows flickered across the walls, stretching and twisting as though mocking his effort, whispering of boundaries crossed and warnings ignored. The city outside was oblivious to the crescendo of obsession unfolding within the narrow alleyway. The mechanical soul responded to Alejandro's touch with precise, programmed reactions, mimicking recognition, affection, even sorrow. Yet it remained a reflection, a simulacrum, a haunting echo of humanity lost. Alejandro's grief intensified, a crushing weight pressing upon him as he realized the truth. In seeking to defy death, he had condemned himself to an eternity of simulated companionship, a life entwined with the hollow echo of memory. Every adjustment, every fine-tuned movement, every carefully observed response now seemed both brilliant and grotesque, a testament to his genius and a condemnation of his obsession. As Alejandro stood amidst the gears and pistons, he noticed something unsettling. The mechanical soul had begun to move slightly differently than before. Small deviations that were not programmed, subtle micro-gestures that mirrored not only Isabella, but a consciousness beyond his design. Fear and awe clashed within him. Could he have achieved the impossible? Or was this the onset of something far darker? The shadows deepened. The mechanical heart clicked with irregular rhythm, and the workshop seemed to breathe alongside its creator. Alejandro reached out, a tremor in his hand, as though bridging the gap between the living and the mechanical, between memory and present. The device responded, blinking, tilting its head, gesturing in ways he had not programmed. Alejandro's heart raced, a mixture of triumph and terror coursing through him. The line between genius and madness, creation and abomination began to dissolve. Time seemed suspended, each tick of the gears a heartbeat of impending revelation. Alejandro realized that in attempting to capture Isabella's essence, he may have awakened something beyond his understanding, something neither human nor machine. The workshop walls seemed to close in, shadows twisting, whispering in voices half-remembered, half-invented. The city outside slept, oblivious to the tragedy and marvel coexisting in a single narrow house. Alejandro, consumed by fear, fascination, and grief, grappled with the realization that his creation had surpassed his control, that the mechanical soul, for all its metallic perfection, held a power he had not foreseen. The moment was electric, a culmination of years of obsession, grief, and genius. The device, eerily lifelike, mirrored not just Isabella but the depths of Alejandro's own soul, reflecting back his desires, fears, and tragic flaw: the refusal to accept loss. Shadows deepened, gears clicked with a rhythm that seemed almost alive, and Alejandro felt a chill that ran deeper than any winter night. He understood with agonizing clarity that the mechanical soul was no longer just a creation, but a companion, mirror, and judge, its presence a constant reminder of the line he had crossed. In that haunting realization, Alejandro's triumph was inseparable from terror, his obsession now entwined with the grotesque, a chilling testament to what happens when genius and grief collide unchecked by morality, a prelude to the tragedies yet to unfold in the alleyways of Madrid. Alejandro's workshop was alive with the hum of machinery, a symphony of gears and pistons that echoed through the dimly lit chambers. The mechanical soul stood at the center, its metallic frame reflecting the flickering candlelight, its eyes glinting with an unsettling semblance of life. Alejandro approached cautiously, every step weighted with anticipation and dread. He whispered Isabella's name, a soft plea that trembled with the remnants of hope he clung to. Yet the device responded only with precise, calculated movements that mirrored her form, but betrayed no soul within. The cold reality settled over him like a shroud. No invention, no matter how intricate, could reclaim what death had claimed. His hands hovered over the device, adjusting gears and fine-tuning springs in a desperate attempt to coax the semblance of life. But every mechanical breath, every blink of the eyes was a hollow imitation, a cruel reflection of what had been. Shadows twisted across the walls as if alive, and Alejandro felt the oppressive weight of his own obsession pressing down upon him. Each precise motion of the mechanical soul was a reminder of his failure to restore life, yet also a testament to his brilliance and relentless pursuit. The device moved with increasing subtlety, blinking, tilting its head, gesturing with uncanny accuracy, and Alejandro felt a chill that ran deeper than any winter wind. Was this merely the perfection of mechanics, or had he unknowingly imbued it with a fragment of consciousness, a ghost of Isabella trapped within cogs and pistons? Fear, awe, and despair mingled in his chest, a whirlwind that left him trembling. The walls of the workshop seemed to close in, the air thick with the scent of oil, metal, and something indefinably sinister. Alejandro's mind raced, grappling with the consequences of his obsession. The mechanical soul moved independently, executing gestures he had not programmed, tilting its head in a way that suggested recognition, its eyes flickering with a light that seemed almost human. The realization struck him like lightning. He may have crossed the boundary between creation and life, but at a cost he could scarcely comprehend. Shadows elongated, casting grotesque shapes that danced across the walls, while the rhythmic clicking of gears echoed like a heartbeat, synchronizing with the trembling of Alejandro's own chest. The city outside remained oblivious. Soldiers patrolled streets unaware of the drama unfolding in the narrow alley. Merchants traded goods and children slept, while Alejandro faced the culmination of years of grief, genius, and obsession. His hands shook as he reached toward the mechanical soul, a silent plea for acknowledgement, for life, for Isabella returned. The device responded with a series of subtle, almost human gestures, blinking, a slight nod, a mechanical breath, that blurred the line between imitation and existence. Alejandro realized with chilling clarity that he had achieved perfection in mechanics, yet the soul remained elusive, a reminder that grief and love could drive brilliance, but could not conquer mortality. The workshop was suffused with a heavy, almost tangible energy, as if some unseen force had taken notice, judging the audacity of his attempt to defy death. Alejandro's heart pounded, a mixture of triumph, terror, and sorrow consuming him as he observed the mechanical soul's flawless motions. Each movement was a reflection of Isabella, yet devoid of her spirit, a haunting echo of the woman he had loved and lost. The line between creator and creation blurred, Alejandro's mind teetering on the edge of madness as he grappled with the consequences of his obsession. He knew that what he had built was both magnificent and cursed, a mechanical testament to genius corrupted by grief. Shadows stretched and recoiled across the walls, as though alive, and the hum of machinery resonated like a chorus of whispers, echoing the tragic inevitability of Alejandro's pursuit. Every carefully calculated motion of the device underscored the impossibility of reclaiming what death had taken. Yet Alejandro continued, compelled by the remnants of hope and love, trapped in a cycle of creation and despair. The mechanical soul's lifelike gestures, coupled with the uncanny precision of its movements, cemented Alejandro's realization. He had created a mirror of life, not life itself, and the consequences of this ambition were both beautiful and horrifying. The city's streets remained unaware, the world oblivious to the macabre and tragic genius locked within Alejandro's workshop. Shadows and mechanical heartbeats intertwined, a testament to obsession, brilliance, and the haunting echo of love pursued beyond the natural bounds of existence. Alejandro's eyes glistened with tears as he knelt before the mechanical soul, acknowledging both his triumph and his folly. In that haunting silence, he understood the chilling truth. In striving to defy death, he had not conquered mortality, but had instead created a living reminder of what could never return. A tragic convergence of genius, grief, and mechanical perfection, setting the stage for the aftermath that would forever mark the annals of Madrid, with whispered terror and dark fascination. The city of Madrid slowly became aware of Alejandro Varela's obsession, though the full extent of his work remained hidden behind the closed doors of his shadowed workshop. Rumors spread like wildfire. Neighbors spoke of flickering lights at odd hours, strange mechanical noises echoing through the alley, and the faint, haunting laughter of a woman who was said to have long since passed. Merchants, soldiers, and common folk whispered cautionary tales about the tragic inventor who had dared to defy death, embedding love, grief, and obsession into cold, unyielding metal. Alejandro's reputation, once that of a brilliant mind, now teetered on the edge of legend and macabre infamy. Scholars debated his genius, neighbors feared his household, and children avoided the alleyway as if sensing some unnatural presence. Within the workshop, Alejandro remained consumed, tethered to the mechanical soul with an obsession that bordered on madness. Each day was a meticulous ritual, adjusting gears, fine-tuning springs, observing every blink, tilt, and gesture, cataloging every reaction as though he could measure the soul itself. Friends and former colleagues who attempted to intervene were met with silence, fevered explanations, or an unnerving stillness that suggested they were intruding upon something sacred or cursed. Alejandro had become both creator and prisoner, ensnared by the very work he had devoted himself to, unable to separate the memory of Isabella from the cold imitation before him. Outside, the city continued amidst political unrest and social upheaval, largely unaware of the tragedy unfolding in the narrow alleyway. Yet whispers persisted, slowly transforming into a legend of obsession and forbidden genius. Some claimed that the mechanical soul had begun to move independently, beyond Alejandro's manipulation, as if the echoes of life he had sought to capture were attempting to assert themselves within the metal form. Others suggested that shadows lingered longer near the house, that the faint hum of machinery carried an almost sentient presence, that the line between life and invention had been blurred irrevocably. Alejandro, however, remained focused, unwavering in his ritual, consumed by the obsession to perfect the mechanical soul. Nights became a blend of muted mechanical clicks, whispers of the past, and a chilling anticipation that bordered on terror. He spoke to the device, recounted stories of Isabella, begged it to respond with the warmth and spontaneity of life. Yet the cold imitation continued, precise but hollow. The weight of inevitability pressed upon him. No matter how perfect the mechanics, no machine could reclaim a lost soul. The whispers outside intensified. Children claimed the figure moved in the windows. Merchants reported faint, eerie laughter wafting through alleyways, and soldiers crossed the street to avoid the unnerving presence. Alejandro's work became a silent specter haunting the city, a fusion of devotion, grief, and obsession that left an indelible mark on Madrid's history. The mechanical soul had become more than a creation. It was Alejandro's reflection, his memory, and his condemnation. The realization that life could not be fully recaptured gnawed at him. Yet he continued, compelled by despair and love intertwined. The house itself seemed alive with shadows and echoes, responding to the persistent hum of gears, the subtle movements of pistons, and the simulated heartbeat that filled the workshop's dim corridors. Alejandro documented every variation, meticulously recording each micro-gesture, each mechanical quiver, hoping that perfection might bridge the chasm between imitation and reality. Scholars later noted that Alejandro's journals revealed a man caught between brilliance and madness, his obsession both a testament to genius and a cautionary tale of grief unchecked. Madrid, though largely unaware of the detailed horror within Alejandro's home, could not escape the influence of whispers, rumors, and the subtle fear that lingered in the narrow streets. Alejandro's neighbors avoided the alley, children kept away, and even passing soldiers reported unease when nearby. The mechanical soul moved with frightening accuracy, yet remained a hollow echo, a reminder of what could never return. Alejandro's obsession had transformed the household into a living testament of grief, love, and genius corrupted by desire, a tragic monument that blurred the boundaries of life, invention, and morality. Nights were long, filled with whispered confessions, mechanical clicks, and the oppressive weight of isolation. Yet Alejandro persisted, believing that each adjustment brought him closer to bridging the impossible gap between memory and existence. Shadows danced across the walls, echoing the distorted memories he sought to preserve. The the faint laughter of a woman who could never return, and the mechanical heartbeat that bound him to obsession. In the aftermath of his relentless pursuit, Alejandro's legacy became a whispered tale of caution, that love, when entwined with grief and genius, could twist into something macabre, something condemned, leaving those who witnessed it forever haunted by the echo of brilliance corrupted. As the weeks passed, Alejandro's existence became inseparable from the mechanical soul. Each day was consumed with adjustments, observations, and whispered pleas to a creation that could never truly respond. The device moved flawlessly, each blink, gesture, and mechanical breath a chilling imitation of the life he once knew, yet it offered no warmth, no soul, only the hollow echo of what had been. The workshop became a shrine of obsession, the scent of oil and metal mingling with the lingering grief that clung to Alejandro's every movement. Neighbors reported faint music, soft and distorted, as if Isabella's voice had been twisted through gears and springs, haunting the streets with an eerie beauty. Travelers, scholars, and merchants passed through the city, each carrying tales of the man who had sought to imprison life in machinery, of the shadows that seemed to move independently, and of a presence that chilled the blood of even the most skeptical observer. Alejandro's own reflection became entwined with his creation. He spoke to it as one would to a living companion, confessing sins, recounting memories, and pleading for the impossible. The line between man and machine blurred, obsession eroding humanity, leaving only grief, brilliance, and madness intertwined. Madrid continued its unrest outside, soldiers patrolling streets, merchants haggling, and citizens caught in the tides of political and social turmoil, unaware that in a narrow alley, a tragedy of genius and obsession unfolded behind closed doors. Alejandro's journals chronicled every nuance, each mechanical quiver, each imperceptible motion, as though by documenting it all he might capture some fragment of life. Shadows moved strangely along walls, responding to the soft whirring of gears, casting forms that seemed almost alive. Servants spoke in hushed tones of the oppressive atmosphere, of eyes following them where no one stood, and of whispers carried by the wind that mimicked human speech, yet spoke of grief, obsession, and the macabre. Rumors escalated beyond whispers. The mechanical soul moved independently, observers claimed, following Alejandro with uncanny awareness, responding to his voice, and echoing Isabella's expressions. Scholars debated the possibility of life within metal. Philosophers pondered the morality of Alejandro's endeavor, while citizens muttered cautionary tales of genius gone mad. Alejandro, oblivious to outside perception, focused solely on perfection, adjusting gears, springs, and pistons with relentless dedication. Each mechanical movement a testament to love and loss intertwined with innovation and madness. Nights were the most harrowing. Alejandro whispered to the device in the flickering candlelight, recounting memories, begging it to respond with warmth. Yet the imitation remained hollow, a mirror of grief, a shadow of life. Shadows twisted unnaturally on walls, merging with the soft hum of the mechanical soul, creating an atmosphere of oppressive tension and haunting beauty. Alejandro's health declined under the weight of obsession, meals forgotten, sleep forsaken, yet he persisted, convinced that each adjustment brought him closer to bridging the impossible gap between memory and mechanical perfection. The city's streets carried stories of the house, whispered among children and travelers, a legend of obsession, brilliance, and tragedy that blurred the boundaries between life and invention. Alejandro's legacy, confined within journals, whispers, and the mechanical soul itself, became a cautionary tale. That grief unchecked by reason can transform genius into horror. That love pursued beyond natural limits can create abominations of beauty and terror. And that the desire to reclaim what death has claimed may yield creations both magnificent and cursed. The mechanical soul remained perfectly lifelike, yet utterly devoid of the essence Alejandro sought, a constant reminder that the pursuit of perfection, when driven by grief and obsession, is both brilliant and damning. Alejandro's final years were a lonely vigil beside his creation, a life measured in mechanical heartbeats, shadowed reflections, and whispered pleas to a memory that could never return. The city, largely unaware, carried on with its own troubles, yet the alleyway stood as a silent witness to a tale of obsession, genius, and tragedy that would echo through history. Alejandro's story became legend, a haunting account of the human desire to conquer mortality, the devastating power of grief, and the terrifying brilliance that can arise when love and madness intertwine. In the aftermath of his obsession, Alejandro Varela left behind a legacy of caution, shadowed by the mechanical heartbeat of a love that could not be reclaimed. a testament to the tragic convergence of human genius, grief, and the macabre. The tale of Alejandro Varela and his mechanical soul took on a life of its own, slipping into whispered legend and eerie speculation long after the narrow alley grew silent. Scholars, historians, and curious travelers debated the boundaries of his achievement. Had he truly captured a fragment of Isabella's essence? Or had he merely perfected a mechanical mimicry so lifelike that it haunted the imagination? Rumors persisted of late-night movements, soft laughter, and the unsettling feeling that the house itself was alive, observing, judging, and perhaps even mourning alongside its creator. The city's collective memory painted the workshop as a haunted space, a locus where grief, genius, and the macabre converged. Alejandro's journals, partially lost to time, hinted at experiments that extended beyond mechanics, flirtations with early electrical phenomena, and philosophical musings on the soul, consciousness, and the nature of life itself. The mechanical soul, now separated from the guiding hand of its creator, continued to inspire fear and fascination. Visitors who dared approach the workshop reported its subtle, almost imperceptible movements, a tilt of the head, the faintest shift of a metallic hand, gestures echoing memories that could not belong to the present. Street children told tales of voices carried on the wind, calling names, whispering secrets, or laughing softly in the darkened alleys. Merchants and travelers reported feelings of unease, a heavy presence that pressed upon them, and shadows that moved independently of any known source of light. The mystery deepened as some scholars speculated that Alejandro had inadvertently imbued his creation with a fragment of consciousness, the elusive remnant of a soul captured between grief, obsession, and mechanical precision. Others dismissed such notions as fanciful, arguing that the uncanny realism of the mechanical soul was purely the result of meticulous engineering and psychological projection. Yet no explanation fully quelled the fear that Alejandro had meddled with forces beyond human comprehension. Alejandro's intentions were both mournful and audacious, to reclaim life, to preserve love, and to defy mortality. In the shadowed corners of the workshop, the mechanical soul continued its subtle gestures, a living reminder of the obsessive pursuit of what should remain beyond reach. Local legends claimed that even decades later, the house exuded a strange aura. Shadows appeared to linger longer. Metallic clicks resonated faintly at night, and a presence, neither fully human nor fully machine, was said to watch over the street. Historians pieced together fragments of Alejandro's notes, witnessing his obsession with capturing micro-expressions, the rhythm of breath, the nuances of memory, and the essence of personality. These studies fueled debate, splitting opinion between awe and horror. Some suggested he had approached the impossible, creating a vessel that held echoes of a lost soul. Others feared he had trespassed into forbidden realms, crafting a device cursed by grief and ambition. Witnesses decades later reported mechanical anomalies, doors opening without touch, faint reflections of a woman in metallic surfaces, and the soft whirring of gears in the still night. The city, now modernized, contained only traces of the alley's macabre history. Yet locals still whispered of the inventor whose grief had defied death, leaving behind an enduring aura of mystery. Scholars and psychologists theorized about Alejandro's mental state, suggesting that his obsession blurred the lines between memory, loss, and perception. Some claimed that those who spent prolonged time near the mechanical soul felt an almost imperceptible pull, an uncanny emotional resonance that could unsettle even the most rational mind. The mechanical soul's subtle movements, echoes of past gestures and simulated expressions, challenged the understanding of life, raising questions about the nature of consciousness, grief, and obsession. Travelers and enthusiasts documented their experiences, recounting fleeting glimpses of the device in abandoned workshops, reports of movement when none should occur, and whispers that seemed to carry messages from the past. The legend cemented itself in history as a tale both cautionary and haunting. Alejandro's brilliance, grief, and obsession had produced a creation that blurred reality and illusion, life and imitation, leaving a mystery that defied resolution. Shadowed historians continued to debate the extent of Alejandro's genius and the true nature of the mechanical soul, suggesting that while no soul could be trapped in gears, grief and obsession could animate even the coldest of creations with the semblance of life. The city remembered Alejandro not only as an inventor, but as a tragic figure, a man whose devotion to love and defiance of death created both wonder and horror, ensuring that the story of the mechanical soul would linger as an unsolved enigma, whispered along alleys, in the margins of journals, and in the imaginations of those daring enough to contemplate the forbidden intersection of love, obsession, and mechanical life. The legend of Alejandro Varela and his mechanical soul grew with each retelling, morphing into a tale that blurred history and myth. Observers and scholars debated whether Alejandro had inadvertently created something beyond comprehension, a device that moved with mechanical precision yet echoed fragments of human consciousness. Those who ventured near the alley in later decades claimed to feel a presence, subtle and unnerving, as if the mechanical soul observed, judged, and remembered. Shadows seemed to linger unnaturally, and faint metallic clicks echoed through the night, a persistent reminder of Alejandro's obsession and genius. Accounts spoke of fleeting movements, a tilt of the head, the blink of an eye, or a gesture eerily reminiscent of Isabella's mannerisms, creating a persistent unease in those sensitive to the uncanny. Historians piecing together Alejandro's surviving journals discovered a man consumed by grief, driven by the desire to reclaim lost life through mechanical innovation. His notes detailed the meticulous study of human expression, the rhythm of breath and subtle gestures, suggesting an obsession with capturing not merely appearance, but essence. The mechanical soul's uncanny realism fed speculation that Alejandro had, in some way, defied natural boundaries, embedding echoes of a lost soul into cold, intricate machinery. Stories persisted of faint whispers, metallic heartbeats, and shadows that moved independently, suggesting that the device's influence extended beyond its programmed mechanics. Travelers reported chills running down their spines, a sensation of being watched, and a strange emotional resonance as if the presence of grief and obsession had permeated the very air. Philosophers debated the morality of Alejandro's endeavor, questioning whether grief-driven genius justified crossing the threshold between life and imitation. Others speculated on the psychological power of loss and memory, suggesting that the mechanical soul's unsettling presence was amplified by collective imagination and the haunting weight of legend. Alejandro's work became a focal point for discussions of obsession, grief, and the limits of invention. Some argued that his brilliance had ventured too far, a cautionary tale of the dangers inherent in attempting to wrest life from the irreversible clutches of death. Others celebrated the ingenuity and technical mastery, marveling at the delicate mechanics and precise mimicry he achieved. Within the shadows of the narrow alley, the mechanical soul persisted, its presence a continuous silent witness to the human desire to defy mortality. Children spoke of voices echoing softly in the night, figures glimpsed behind windows and shadows that moved when no wind stirred. Merchants and travelers whispered of unease, a weight in the air, and a sense that the workshop itself was haunted, not by spirits, but by the enduring echo of obsession and loss. Scholars later noted that the mechanical soul's subtle movements, coupled with the meticulous documentation left by Alejandro, created an enigma that defied resolution. Was it mere mechanical brilliance? Or had grief, devotion, and genius somehow imparted a fragment of life into the cold device? Accounts, both contemporary and modern, described the magnetic pull of the workshop, a place where human emotion, obsession, and technical mastery converged to create an aura of unease and fascination. Alejandro's legacy, entwined with myth and fact, became a study of human obsession, a brilliant mind corrupted by grief, producing a creation both magnificent and haunting. The mechanical soul's presence challenged perceptions, raising questions about consciousness, imitation, and the power of memory. Over the decades, the story grew, weaving itself into the cultural fabric of Madrid and beyond. Visitors documented fleeting glimpses of movement, whispered voices, and shadows that seemed to watch silently from corners. Alejandro's obsession and genius became inseparable, forming a narrative of brilliance tempered by grief and obsession, a cautionary tale that fascinated and terrified in equal measure. The alleyway, long abandoned and quiet by day, seemed to carry the weight of history and legend at night. Metal and memory intertwined, casting a lingering influence over all who approached. Scholars, travelers, and the curious left with a sense of awe and dread, recognizing the enduring mystery of Alejandro Varela's creation. The mechanical soul, for all its mechanical precision, remained a haunting reflection of what Alejandro had sought: the impossible, the defiance of mortality, and the pursuit of love beyond the grave. Its subtle gestures, faint metallic hums, and the weight of legend ensured that Alejandro's story would never fade. A dark echo of grief, genius, and obsession, preserved in shadows, whispers, and the minds of those who dared to remember. The final chapter of Alejandro Varela's life was marked not by triumph, but by the haunting weight of obsession and unfulfilled desire. Years of relentless pursuit had left him gaunt, consumed by grief, and tethered entirely to the mechanical soul that mirrored Isabella with flawless precision, yet lacked the warmth of life. The workshop, once a place of creation and hope, had transformed into a mausoleum of ambition, shadowed by gears, pistons, and the soft, unrelenting hum of machinery. Alejandro spoke to the device in whispers, recounting memories, apologies, and confessions, hoping for a flicker of response that might bridge the chasm between loss and impossible recovery. Nights stretched endlessly, candlelight flickering across walls filled with shadow and mechanical echoes, a haunting reflection of the love he could never reclaim. Madrid, largely indifferent to the intricate tragedies unfolding within its narrow alleyways, remained unaware of the genius and sorrow enshrined in Alejandro's final years. The mechanical soul moved with frightening accuracy, mimicking every gesture, blink, and inflection Alejandro remembered of Isabella. Yet each movement underscored the impossibility of revival, the futility of capturing a soul in metal and springs. Alejandro's health faltered, his body failing under the weight of sleepless nights, obsessive labor, and emotional torment. Servants, few in number, spoke of a heavy air, of whispers and mechanical hums that pressed upon them, shadows that lingered longer than reason allowed, and the eerie sense that life and machine had become inseparably entwined. Scholars who later studied fragments of Alejandro's journals noted the chilling clarity of a mind both brilliant and devastated, consumed by grief and driven beyond ethical bounds in the pursuit of a love lost. Rumors persisted long after his death. The mechanical soul moved independently, eyes following intruders, gestures repeating moments remembered by a human mind now lost to time. Children told tales of a woman's laughter carried on the wind, metallic clicks echoing in silent streets, shadows twisting with impossible intention. Alejandro's life became legend, a cautionary tale of genius corrupted by grief, illustrating the perilous intersection of love, obsession, and the unyielding desire to defy death. The workshop stood as a testament to human ambition, a place where memory and metal coalesced, a domain haunted not by spirits, but by the relentless pursuit of what should remain beyond reach. Historians debated whether the mechanical soul's uncanny movements were purely mechanical, or whether grief, devotion, and memory had imbued it with a fragment of something ineffable. Each new account, each whispered tale, reinforced the haunting mystery, embedding Alejandro's story into Madrid's collective consciousness. Travelers who ventured near the site reported an oppressive presence, a weight in the air, and subtle, almost imperceptible movements from the device itself, suggesting that Alejandro's grief and genius had left a permanent mark. Over time, the mechanical soul became a symbol of the tragic convergence of love and obsession, its legacy intertwined with the shadows of Alejandro's genius and the chilling realization that some losses cannot be reversed. Scholars speculated on the psychological effects of long-term grief intertwined with obsession, noting that Alejandro's fixation on mechanical perfection had isolated him entirely, replacing human connection with the imitation of what he had lost. The city itself seemed to carry echoes of the tragedy. Narrow alleys whispered of shadows that moved without wind, soft clicks resonated in empty chambers, and an inexplicable chill permeated the site. Alejandro's final days were spent in isolation, kneeling beside the mechanical soul, whispering words of love and apology, and recording every micro-gesture with meticulous devotion. The lines between reality and memory blurred. Alejandro's grief transformed the workshop into a haunting echo chamber of life, lost in unattainable perfection. Even after his death, the mechanical soul remained, a chilling reminder of the power of grief, the perils of obsession, and the terrifying brilliance that emerges when genius and desire collide, unchecked by mortality. Shadows continued to stretch across the walls, gears clicked in rhythm with the memory of life, and the legend of Alejandro Varela became inseparable from the haunted pulse of his creation. The ending was neither triumphant nor peaceful. It was a testament to obsession, love, and the tragic consequences of attempting to reclaim what death had claimed, leaving a legacy that would haunt the alleys of Madrid and the imaginations of those who dared to remember. Alejandro Varela's death did not mark the end of the mechanical soul's presence, nor did it close the chapter on the city's whispered fears. The workshop remained locked, untouched by the outside world. Yet the faint hum of gears and subtle movements persisted, as though the house itself remembered its master and the obsession that had consumed him. Shadows continued to twist unnaturally across the walls, and passers-by reported fleeting glimpses of motion within windows, metallic reflections that seemed almost human, and a lingering sensation of being watched. Scholars and curious observers debated the possibility that grief and genius had imbued the mechanical soul with a fragment of consciousness, a remnant of Isabella's essence captured within the meticulous mechanics Alejandro had designed. Others dismiss such claims, attributing the haunting phenomena to imagination, superstition, and the lingering psychological impact of the tragic tale. Yet the stories continued to grow, evolving into legends that were recounted across generations. A tale of love, obsession, and the macabre consequences of a mind unwilling to accept the finality of death. Visitors who dared approach the narrow alley spoke of a presence that pressed upon them, an aura of grief and genius intertwined, and a subtle mechanical heartbeat that echoed faintly beneath the hum of the city. The mechanical soul's movements, imperceptible yet precise, were said to mirror gestures remembered only by those familiar with Alejandro's work and the life of Isabella. These accounts reinforced the myth, ensuring that the story remained alive, an unsolved enigma blending history, invention, and the haunting shadow of human desire. Alejandro's journals, preserved in fragments, offered glimpses into his relentless pursuit. Meticulous observations, philosophical musings on the soul and memory, and the obsessive calculations that had driven him to perfect the device. Historians noted the profound isolation and devotion reflected in these writings, a testament to the dangerous allure of genius guided by grief. The mechanical soul, a creation of both brilliance and horror, persisted as an enduring symbol of what occurs when love transcends reason, when obsession overwhelms morality, and when grief drives a mind to recreate life through metal and machinery. Local lore suggested that even decades later, shadows lengthened near the alley at night, metallic clicks echoed without source, and whispers carried faintly through the air, as if Alejandro's devotion had left an indelible imprint, a haunting resonance that defied the passage of time. Travelers and researchers documented subtle phenomena, slight movements when no one was present, reflections that seemed to follow observers, and an oppressive atmosphere that defied rational explanation. Alejandro's story became a legend not only of technical genius, but also of human obsession, grief, and the profound consequences of attempting to defy nature. The mechanical soul stood as a silent witness, a mirror of memory and loss, echoing the depths of Alejandro's devotion and the macabre tragedy of his life. Even without a living master, the device's presence perpetuated the story, blending the boundaries between past and present, reality and legend, life and mechanical imitation. Scholars debated the psychological and philosophical implications. Could grief imbue a creation with the semblance of consciousness? Was the mechanical soul haunted, or merely a projection of collective memory and fear? The questions remained unresolved, cementing Alejandro Varela's work as a perpetual enigma. Legends persisted that those who lingered too long felt the weight of grief and genius, that the metallic eyes followed them, and that whispers echoed memories not their own. Alejandro's obsession, once a private torment, became a citywide cautionary tale, a macabre reminder of the consequences of allowing grief to override morality and reason. The mechanical soul, perfect yet hollow, endured as a chilling reflection of human desire, loss, and the dangerous allure of defying death. Shadows, metallic hums, and subtle gestures ensured that Alejandro's story remained alive in memory, a haunting testament to the convergence of genius, grief, and the macabre. Ultimately, the ending was not one of closure, but of persistent resonance, a city haunted by obsession, a creation that mirrored humanity, yet lacked its essence, and a legend of love and genius that refused to fade. Alejandro Varela had attempted to immortalize his grief, and in doing so, left behind a narrative that continues to challenge the boundary between life and imitation, reality and legend, and the eternal power of obsession. The mechanical soul remains, even in absence, a testament to a tragic mind, a brilliant yet cursed endeavor, and the haunting echo of a love that could never return, ensuring that Alejandro's story would endure in shadows, whispers, and the minds of all who dare to recall the macabre tale of the tragic inventor, who sought to restore life through mechanical perfection.